Gen Z is so into like vintage Black Friday. Like they're
Okay.
like, it's so funny. Last couple of years, I've noticed like they'll post these highlight reels of like 1999 Black Friday where everyone's lining up at 3 in the morning and like rushing into the store. It's like a total stampede. And they're like, oh, I wish I could experience a Black Friday like this. It's so funny. And so we saw last year a lot of brands do this where, there's always been the doorbuster sales, but they made the Black Friday experience like a real experience.
Welcome to the table, steam on the glass. Market moves fast, but we talk it out. From carts to clicks, from mass to scale, every trend that breaks, we pull it apart. Morning in the feed, ideas in the cup. Old rules shaking, new ways showing up. Coffee and commerce, Caleb and Kayla, keep it moving. Coffee and commerce, from first sip to future, we're brewing.
So you were saying about the holiday predictions?
Yeah, so we had a really good group join us live on Tuesday for the webinar. And so far, we've gotten some really great feedback on the findings and the story and the overall messaging. So it's exciting, officially kicking off the holiday season. I feel like we're already at Christmas, ready to start playing the Christmas music.
That's cool, though, that you already were able to get some positive feedback on the predictions.
Yeah. And we have a ton of interest to do these one-on-one with a lot of customers. So
Yeah.
we'll be going on a campaign for the next few months leading up to Cyber Week, evangelizing the findings. And then we had Celeste Richardson join to go over a lot of the strategy recommendations that lined up to what we're thinking, what we're seeing. And then we had Neha Kovac from David Yurman who joined and gave us her perspective. So it was really great. We had the thought leadership, the insights, the data. We had the real practical strategy recommendations, and then we had like the practitioner perspective. So it was really great.
What was Neha's perspective as a practitioner at David Yurman on what to expect from the holiday season this year?
Yeah, well, it seemed like it really resonated with her. The impact of discovery at the top of the journey, the top of the funnel. The David Yurman customer is a little bit unique, right? It's a higher price point. It's more of a luxury product. And so for things like social commerce, that might not be as relevant, but, targeting aspirational shopper, building those white glove luxury experiences, targeting personalization, persona marketing, all super important, super relevant. And really from her perspective, it was just, delivering on the experiences that your customers are wanting and expecting, and showing up in those journeys and in those channels. So yeah, she had a great point of view on what she's seeing and feeling. And it's interesting. And, we just got results from the Q2 shopping index as well. So we're seeing some positive signs in the economy, more from like just a pure numbers perspective. So not sentiment or anything, but performance, that sales are on an upward trajectory. People are spending more, they're buying more, even if they say they're not, they are. And which is all really great news as we head into the back half of the year where we know spending will definitely ramp. Q4 is always the best spending moment of the year. So, really positive signs overall that retailers will see some growth and lift this year.
Well, so Kayla, let's get into the holiday predictions. I want to dig into the retail trends as well. But maybe let's start with the top 5 holiday predictions and then go from there. You and I have been talking about this already, but maybe just like hit like all 5 holiday predictions and then we can double click into them within each one and really just get sort of the why behind.
Yeah, well, the overarching theme this year is about the journey, and we're kind of calling it a unified but fragmented journey. The journey's becoming increasingly fragmented in the sense that more and more parts of the shopper journey are happening off property. However, the demand from the consumer that experience be unified is higher than ever. So brands have a really tough shoes to fill this year, and really, as we move forward, going forward, even beyond holiday. So starting at the top of the journey, our first prediction is all around the role of agents in the discovery These are third-party agents. So a lot of discovery now is happening off-property in these general purpose LLM type conversations. So think ChatGPT, Gemini. It's driving a lot of activity at the top of the funnel. We anticipate this holiday that is going to drive a surge of agent activity on brand and retailers' websites. So we're anticipating about 20% of holiday traffic will be non-human. And that's, a combination of indexing sites, retrieving and pulling information back into customer conversations, and overall just crawler activity on websites. It is surging, and we expect it to really ramp up over the holidays. Moving from the top of the funnel down into the research and consideration stage, we're seeing an influx of branded agents. So brands launching their own shopper agents on site. We saw this last holiday, building their own agents on site. We're seeing more consumers report using agents on site. And so we anticipate this holiday 1 in 3 brands will have their own shopper agent launched before Cyber Week. So the race to build a shopper agent is on, and there's going to be a ton of agents coming live ahead of Cyber Week. Our third prediction, moving beyond research and consideration into purchasing, we're seeing early signs that the back half of the funnel is also becoming diversified across new channels, especially with the rapid growth of social commerce. So transactions happening directly in the social channel, and we anticipate social commerce transactions will grow about 9 times faster than traditional e-commerce this holiday. And then from there, we move into our fourth prediction, which is all about the role of the store. Physical retail is still it is the top shopping channel. It's still majority of retail sales, not just during holiday, but across the entire year still happen in store. And we see no signs of that slowing down. However, the role of the store in the shopping journey is changing. It is now a unified experience for the consumer. So 43%, I believe, of shoppers say that they've already researched the products online before they even step foot in the store. And shoppers in store, 80% of them are using their phones. So our fourth number is all about the role of digital and physical, and we're calling it like the role of the omni-channel experience. So a hybrid sale. So a sale that relies both on physical retail and digital retail to close the buying loop. And that will be about $38 spent this holiday. And then our final and fifth prediction is about more leaning into the impact of the K-shaped economy. All of the behaviors that we just talked about are massively impacted by the consumer's financial situations. And so when we looked at consumer sentiment, we're seeing a deepening of that K. But where they converge, where we see agreement, is in the need for free shipping. So free shipping is a demand that we see across all income levels when it comes to determining where a buyer will choose to buy from. And so in an era of rapidly rising return rates, increasing costs, retailers have a lot on their balance sheets to manage while they're in the meantime trying to protect margin. And so we anticipate that brands will spend an additional $3 billion this holiday season just trying to continue to give free shipping to customers this holiday. And that's mainly on the impact of the cost or the rising cost of gas and oil due to a lot of the geopolitical consequences in the market right now.
And that's awesome. In terms of the predictions, I agree with many of them. And so just to summarize them, to make sure I capture them. So 20% of agentic search will be influenced by agents as relates to the top of the funnel for product discovery. And then once consumers do get to a place of sort of deeper product discovery within the brand's owned and operated experience, 1 in 3 brands will have their own shopping agent to provide that second tier of contextual relevance for the shopper as they are entering the shopping funnel within the brand. Number 3 is that social commerce transactions ultimately will be 9 times higher than what they were last year and will continue to contribute a significant amount of transactions within the holiday season. Your fourth prediction, the hybrid sale, which actually I quite like, related to the omni-channel experience. You mentioned that of all holiday retail dollars spent, the hybrid sale will influence 38% of those dollars, so quite high. And I think would love to double click on what that hybrid experience looks like. But then the fifth is really the convergence of that K-shaped economy and the importance of free shipping as a mechanism for bringing all buyers, a seat at the table as it relates to converting within the digital commerce channel. Is that a fair summation of those 5 predictions?
I would say that, yeah, you nailed it, Caleb.
Kayla. So within that 20% agentic search, expanding the top of the funnel, I think historically we would agree with that. And also why, literally just this week we announced GA of our ChatGPT syndication for product catalog. And also we know that both OpenAI and Google have indicated prioritization of syndication feeds over just straight, web crawling consumption as it relates to product discovery. So having predetermined feeds that are reliable, that are stable, that are predictable, we have received indication of that mechanism as a point of importance, both for third-party shopping and product discovery, as well as ultimately priority for the platform in order to provide that to merchants. Is there anything do you have any recommendations attached to that you would also sort of give that merchants could do in order to take advantage of that 20%?
Yeah. Well, from my perspective, brands will have to do both optimization for the feed, taking advantage of those feed integration or this feed integration technology, as well as prepare their site for those agent crawlers that do not have feeds, right? So, we know that ChatGPT and Gemini or Google and OpenAI are building their own native feed integrations, but there are more agents out there than just those two. So we know that TikTok has an agent crawler, Meta AI, these social media agent assistants are crawling sites and pulling information back into conversations. Especially younger generations are more apt to be using those that technology. So you really have to be thinking about it from both ways. I think the feed integration is going to be critical because if you have 20% of your traffic coming from non-human sources, that's a big load on your site. And so we're seeing traffic right now, e-commerce traffic grow at double digits. It grew almost 20 in Q2, which we haven't seen that rate of traffic growth since the 2020, 2021 era where everything switched to digital because of the pandemic. And so our hypothesis, what's driving that is the agent crawlers driving up traffic to e-com websites. So you're going to need that, but you're also going to need to optimize for GEO, AEO. And then you're also going to have to decide which crawlers you want, right? I don't think it makes sense to block all of them because then you're going to be completely invisible to these shoppers who are discovering off channel, off property. But do you want all of them? Because again, it's going to be a huge tax on your website.
It is. I was actually with a merchant last week, and many of the third-party LLM crawlers are currently being disallowed, only so that they could have a sort of much more planful response as to how their content is being indexed. So I thought that was interesting. Certainly there's a floodgates approach, which I was, chatting with a merchant. You and I were actually at Commerce Next not that long ago. Yeah. And that merchant is letting all of the bots in, right? All of the agentic crawlers in, whereas other merchants are taking a little bit more of a nuanced approach there. So, okay, that's an interesting recommendation. So then in terms of the second prediction, 1 in 3 sites will have a branded shopping agent, which I wholeheartedly agree, which is also why we announced GA of agentic commerce search and shopper agent this past week at Agentforce Commerce. And that's for any merchant. They don't have to be on Salesforce for commerce. Like you can be on any platform to be able to use that capability. I would argue that this 1 in 3 number probably is low. Now, when we get there remains to be seen. But I think because, and we talked about this last week, because we are influencing consumer behavior of shopping assistance and the ask and answer back and forth of having a conversation about what folks are looking for, and then that having contextual awareness, the customer is absolutely 100% going to look for that shopping assistance once they get to the owned and operated experience. So as a brand, you're going to want to have that and also have that contextual awareness within your search as well, not just the shopper agent. But what would be the recommendation from your perspective? I mean, you've done all of this research. Obviously, I have an opinion on this, shocker. But like, what's sort of the more formal recommendation for merchants who are looking to be able to take advantage of this agentic search within the top of the funnel and then be able to convert more of it as it does come down into their owned and operated experience?
Yeah. Well, 1 in 3, just to bring it back to your original comment, Caleb, 1 in 3 might seem a little conservative, but I would argue that there's a lot of agents currently on brand sites, but not all of them have shopping capabilities. So a lot of them are more like customer service agents or account management type tasks and order management tasks. So shopper agent capabilities seem to be kind of like the next iteration of those. And that's why we would recommend, if you don't have an agent on your site, you start with an order management or customer service agent first. And especially for processing things like returns, or especially over holiday, where we know a lot of queries are going to be like, where is my order? When is this shipping? What are your store hours? When is what is the typical shipping time? Those types of questions, super easy to offload to an agent. So if you're going to if you don't have anything live on your site right now, start with that type of an agent. But before you do anything, you really have to be thinking about how you're managing your data architecture on the back end, where what type of data you have, what you're going to unify, how you're going to create these customer profiles. All of that is super, super important before you launch anything. But yeah, starting with order management and returns, and then, launching the shopper agent experience. And, Caleb, you and I talked at length about the small language model and the importance of that. I really think that's going to be even more important now that we know what consumers are going to like general purpose LLMs for, and what they're choosing for branded agents, like what type of use cases they're choosing branded agents for. We see in our data that the majority of customers are going to branded agents for those order management types of questions, loyalty management questions, etc. But the breadth of all of the real meat, the real interesting part of the journey, product comparisons, nuanced questions about use cases, all of those things, we want to move the consumer from the third-party LLMs to asking those questions with our own branded agents, because that's where we're going to get a lot more information about what our customers want, the types of products they're interested, what they're using our products for, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where having a small language model, I think, is really going to be important, because you can use your proprietary data and you can build better use cases, better experiences for your customers. And we've seen so many really cool agents come to market where, there's some customers that let users upload pictures and videos and get really personalized journeys with their own branded agents. So I think that's going to be we're going to see some really cool things launch ahead of Cyber Week.
Love it. All right, on to social. So walk me through the recommendation for social. We know that social platforms have had a high importance in product discovery, and they are also now having an increasing level of importance in conversion, leveraging social platforms to also make transactions more personal to the consumer. And so then there's this correlated spike in social driven transactions, especially as it relates to holiday. But walk us through like what merchants can do to capture some tailwinds, I should say, off that trend.
Yeah, well, this is a big one. There's so much in this space with social. When we look at social over the years, it's been primarily a discovery engine. Then we saw it move into more of consideration research part of the funnel. And now we're starting to see it be a more serious conversion channel. And so, not every brand, it doesn't necessarily make sense for every brand to move into that conversion part of the funnel on social. But discovery and research consideration, absolutely. So thinking about, Having a really sound influencer strategy before you head into the holidays. We see social spike, especially over Cyber Week. And what's interesting is that consistently every single year, I've been doing this for over 10 years now, every single year, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before Thanksgiving is when we see the highest rates of social shopping at any point in the entire year. So for some reason, like people are getting off of work, they're getting off of school, they're traveling, they are searching their social feeds, they are on
Yeah.
social more than ever.
Yeah.
So which
Totally.
makes sense, right? You're posting, you're home for the holidays. Making sure you have a really sound influencer strategy, making sure that your social advertising is really buttoned up ahead of the season, that you've really identified your personas and that you're ready to go, and making sure you're targeting at the right time, the right personas for your brand. All of that is really important. Moving into social shops, I think it's really important to make sure that your direct to consumer site, your brand site is still the fulfillment engine behind your social shop. So, having that integration really buttoned up, having that
I think
data
it's
flow.
very similar to large language models, right?
Yeah.
Especially with Google and Universal Commerce Protocol. Very, very similar because the merchant still stays the merchant of record. I think the corresponding what we likely saw is where there were sort of like social transactions, the post-purchase sales fell off a cliff, right? Like there was just no communication because it just wasn't well baked.
Yeah.
But then to your point, moving into this social channel is a place of conversion, not just a place of discovery. As long as the merchant, stays the merchant of record and manages the post-sales process within their own channels, then I think it can become quite effective.
Yeah. And then thinking about how you then put those social shoppers on a different journey, right? To fold them into your .com, your owned properties. So that second, third, fourth purchase, right, is now on your branded channels and you're managing that loyalty. And so I think that is really important, thinking about what that shopping journey looks like. It's going to be different from maybe even the shopper that comes through an LLM, right? It's going to be different, and it should be different because, they purchased on a different channel. And so how do you fold them back into your brand owned
100%.
properties? So
but
that's
it's like they are very important channels, but they are still all AI assisted channels, and the brand still has to be at the heart of the transaction, of the customer experience. The brand still has to own how the product shows up, how the customer is experiencing the product, how they are experiencing the brand promise related to the product. The channels are very, very important, and we're going to go into the next channel, which is retail.
Yep.
The brand still has to be at the heart of it. They still have to be not only the merchant of record legally, but also they have to be the merchant of record conceptually, spiritually related to how the customer is experiencing the brand. So to that point, in retail, this hybrid experience, and I think how you described holiday as it relates to social probably also relates to how consumers want to experience retail during the holiday shopping experience. They don't want just a place to go buy the thing. They want a place to go buy the exclusive thing, but then also potentially have like an exclusive, experience attached to that particular brand or what they're looking for. But what does that look like for the retailer when the consumer does show up in the store?
Yeah, well, Caleb, it goes right back to the original theme, right? Which is a fragmented but unified journey. All of these places are just wrappers for the relationship that the consumer has with the brand. They might be transacting on social, but they're experiencing your brand just in a different wrapper. In the same way that they might be having a conversation with an LLM off property, they're still building a relationship with your brand, even though it's not on your own channel. And so how you show up is so important. With the store, though, it is still mostly is going to be your channel, unless you're walking into more of like a retailer, but like a branded store, a little bit different. But yeah, the store is still the top shopping destination. And across all generations, that's true. We don't see the store slowing down. In fact, we see it speeding up in terms of relevancy and engagement and interest. And, we do see some differences in how different generations want to engage with the store. So for younger generations, it's all about exclusivity. It's all about, finding product that you might not necessarily see online. For older generations, they want like a unique store experience, right? So like we've heard of the rise of a lot of those grocery stores that have like a restaurant inside them or a bar. You can walk around with a glass of wine. Older generations are more those types of experiences. But we see, again, across the board, interest everywhere. What is interesting, especially amongst our Gen Zers, and Caleb, I don't know, you're not on TikTok, so maybe you haven't seen this, but younger generations, Gen Z is so into like vintage Black Friday. Like they're like, it's so funny. Last couple of years, I've noticed like they'll post these highlight reels of like 1999 Black Friday where everyone's lining up at 3 a.m. and like rushing into the store. It's like a total stampede. And they're like, oh, I wish I could experience a Black Friday like this. It's so funny. And so we saw last year a lot of brands do this where, there's always been the doorbuster sales, but they made the Black Friday experience like a real experience. So like Target, for example, if you were, if you got in line in a certain spot, you got like a opportunity to win like certain products while you were standing in line. And then everyone got a bag with like goodies and giveaways and gift cards. And we saw Lowe's do something like that. And so that went super viral. It won a ton of goodwill for brands. And I think we're going to see more of that this year. But we know that that's like Gen Z. Even in our research, we saw that Gen Z, number one, they wanted to have like a traditional Black Friday experience. But what's also interesting is that for millennials, they're going to the store because they want to unplug. So millennials are tired of screens and they want to just go and like live in the analog world for a little bit and then walk around the store and have that screen-free shopping experience. But I digress. So yeah, so the store, it's traditional in a lot of ways. The role is traditional, but it is changing because we know that a large majority of shoppers are researching before they get in the store. So they already know what's in stock. And when they're in store,
exactly. I mean,
right?
They don't need to see what the product is. Like, yeah, sure, they're going to touch it, they're going to feel it, all the things that that will augment their digital experience already. But they are also looking for, I think about Ralph Lauren. I think about the RL restaurant in Chicago.
Yeah.
Many a time, both my wife and I would shop downtown in Chicago and not only visit the Ralph Lauren store, but then also make sure that we were having, that unique restaurant experience in conjunction with our shopping. And if you haven't, visited RL, the restaurant, it is amazing. I mean, incredible.
I have not. I gotta go try it out.
Incredible. Yeah. Like just have a glass of Chardonnay, but also pair that with their burger. And that might sound like a weird combination, but do it. It's amazing. And they also have foie gras on the menu. It's just incredible. Yeah.
That's cool. Sounds like we need to do an event there.
Right. We should. Well, they are Ralph Lauren. Great commerce customer. Indeed. But also, and you mentioned rappers. And so I thought of Jay-Z, and it kind of sounds like that merchants need to have a retail state of mind related to their I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. No, I do know where I'm going with this. In the context of digitizing the consumer experience, right, which you mentioned, but also being able to have a unique experience, and so this desire to go more towards an analog, we're seeing the convergence of leveraging the most innovative technology across, moving not just from digital channels, but also into the physical channels, so that the consumer, whether that it is, Gen Z or it's millennial, depending on their desires within the physical channel, they still want to be digitally connected, I would argue. They don't, yes, they want to unplug, to your point, want to have an analog experience. They want to have that glass of Chardonnay and be able to shop. And also, they have done their research in advance. They have leveraged digital in ways their experience is underpinned by digital, and it is informed by the content that they have consumed in digital capacities. And depending on what the generation is, they may or may not use it sort of in spiking degrees or otherwise. And so I think, then whether it's the wrapper or it is the enabler, I think, digital then becomes a significant, and as a result of it, AI, a significant conduit into this hybrid experience as you've described it, because it's not
Totally.
just about the transaction, it's about what the consumer is getting as or what they want or what they expect as part of that
Yep.
in-store experience, but then also how digital is underpinning, enabling that in-store experience to ensure that the customer has everything at their fingertips. And when they want it, like AI will help them. And when they want
Yeah.
shopping assistance, technology will help them. But also, they might want a great glass of French Chardonnay.
Which is why it's so important to sync your online and in-store promotions.
Say it.
It causes so much headache for the store associates when a customer gets up to the cash register and they're like, no, but it's cheaper online, or this, I get this promo online. And it should just be the consumer does not see channels. They see your brand. If
That's
it's
right.
on sale online, it should be on sale in the store. And it just makes fewer headaches for your associates. It makes the transaction experience so much smoother, because there's nothing worse than being stuck behind a long line checking out. And I'm in the South, and our lines are already long enough because you got to talk to everyone as you get through the checkout line.
I was born in the South, but I don't appreciate a line like Southern people do. So that's the North in me talking. All right. So K-shaped economy, final prediction. What's your recommendation for customer or for merchants, I should say, that still want to be able to cater towards the needs of consumers that are seemingly having divergent conditions, but still having some somewhat consistent desires as they interact with brands?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing that everyone needs to do is really do some deep persona marketing and understand who your different types of customers are, especially today where we have the high income earner who's very, very resilient, and is still operating, I would argue, in a bit of a bubble. And then you have your middle and lower income earners who are, they still want to have experiences, and they still are shopping, but they might be trading down more, or making trade-offs, making fewer purchases, being more intentional with their purchases. And so understanding, having that really strong persona-based marketing, defining who your shopper is or shoppers are, is going to be really important, because your personalization is going to be really, really critical right now to catering to these two different types of shoppers. So you want to have a strong personalized marketing journey, site experience to cater to these two individuals. I think catalog management is also going to play a strong role in this. I've talked with a few customers about this at length. It didn't really make it into our predictions, but the idea of, having those aspirational SKUs, how many of them do you have? Do you,
Yep.
Cater to the higher end of the market more and drop off some of those aspirational SKUs, knowing that they probably, you probably won't sell as much of them this year? I think those are conversations that a lot of brands are having right now.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. No, even with not only the aspirational shopper can still be in the affluent shopper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And especially as millennials are moving more into, let's just call, storied brands,
Mm-hmm.
and are appreciating the brands even of like their parents, but in different and unique ways. And even like Gen Zers that are, you mentioned shopping vintage.
Yeah.
Like the brands that can take advantage of sort of this fluctuating consumer, both on the affluent side as well as on the shopper who is down trading. There are still ways that brands can show up for both of these types of shoppers. And so I think of Louis Vuitton. My wife's first Louis Vuitton, which she still has, she got in from a vintage store.
Yeah.
And it was entirely, from a sort of a used, recurated experience, but that is how she was introduced to the Louis Vuitton brand. But she's also, when we were in Paris and when we were in Rome, she's also experienced the in-store with that brand. And, and fortunately for her, has been able to experience and transact in different ways interacting with the brand in a new purchase capacity.
Yeah.
But having said that, like she still loves her vintage Louis, and also she still loves, having the in-store experience. And we've done the Louis Vuitton, cafe for a variety of different agent force commerce events with some of our partners. And it's amazing. Like it's an incredible experience, but you as a brand, and I'm just using Louis Vuitton as an example but there, you still have this opportunity to be able to find your shopper. You have to know, to your point, know your shopper, know where they're at, but then also meet them where they're at and give them the experience that they're looking for. I also think of brands like, Lululemon, who have their, curated experience that they are now owning and using, which I think also, speaks highly to the value and the durability of the brand.
Yes.
Like this is something that, that brands can own, especially the ones that can last, the test of time.
Yeah.
Right?
I know. Totally. It's so funny that you say that because I literally just bought a vintage 1980 Louis Vuitton travel bag yesterday.
Nice.
I bought it.
I like
So
it.
it's funny timing. But I mean, it looks beautiful. But yeah, the heritage, the history, the story of these brands is, there's so much there, and there's so much emotion, right, that consumers have.
Absolutely.
That attached to those brands. It's part of identity. And even Gen Z, who's very individualistic, right? They're definitely impacted by trends, but they make decisions more based on their personal style versus millennials who tend to, I don't want to say go with the crowd, but are much more moved together in terms of purchasing habits. Even they are, we see them making purchasing decisions based on, their feelings about a brand and how it relates to their own individual style and their own values and sense of purpose. And so establishing that emotional connection with consumers is still really, really important. I would argue even more important in this current macro environment, because even the aspirational shopper will make those trade-offs if they have an emotional connection to the brand.
Totally agree.
But,
totally agree.
It's going to be tough because that looming $3 billion number, it's a 7% increase over last year, what retailers paid for free shipping. So, and that's just additional. That's not total. It's additional what they're going to pay. And so how do you protect your bottom line as a brand in this type of environment? If you do have physical stores, one of the ways is to push consumers to fulfill from store, reducing return friction can also help protect margin. We've seen some third-party research come out that has said that shopper agents for brands that deploy them are seeing reduced returns. And we actually saw that, not exactly that same number in our research, but what we did find was that for consumers that say they've interacted with brand agents, I believe the number was 85 or 87% of them said they feel more confident in their purchase after they've interacted and gotten a recommendation from a shopper agent. So, there's creative ways that creative technology today that brands can utilize to help reduce some of those cost pressures that they're, continuing to face year over year.
I love that. You're nailing that. And I would love to see that data continue to matriculate, because I think that also we think about, and certainly for me, I think about it from a conversion standpoint, but also from, lifetime value of the customer, certainly from a KPI standpoint, the return rate attached to the revenue produced. Having a shopping agent can be used as a loyalty agent.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Because it's a personal shopper, but it's also a personal advocate in many ways. Exactly. It's not just about the conversion.
Yeah.
It's also about the viability of the purchase for that particular shopper. And to your point, like using the retail store, I'd be really curious to see, as a follow-up, like what the data might suggest. When shoppers do use a shopping agent, that's certainly one, both on conversion, but then also the correlated conversion, the return rate. But in addition to that, when a consumer uses a shopping agent and if they pick it up in store, what the corresponding KPIs attached to that order might look like. Yeah. Not, is there an increase in basket size? That's certainly one from, overall AOV. But then also, if the customer can touch and feel the order, if they're picking it up in store, do they have a better experience? is there a better delivery method that costs less than shipping the product if you can then attach it to that hybrid omni-channel retail experience, like deliver, going back to the Louis Vuitton example, delivering the bag with, like, hey, we're so excited to for you to pick up your order in the store. Would you like a sparkling water or espresso when you pick it up? Would you like a lemon zest attached on your
Yeah.
espresso? That
Yeah.
even that little touch can significantly reduce the shipping costs
Yeah.
attached to that order, and the customer is going to end up having a better experience than UPS or FedEx just dropping it off at the front door or them having
Absolutely.
to sign for it.
Exactly. And, maybe this isn't a luxury use case, but even just when you think about grocery pickup, right? You go and you pick up, you have an order for pickup at the store and you realize, oh, I have a few extra things. I'm already here. I'm just going to get out of my car and go back into the store
Yeah.
and grab these. Like there's always, what we've found is that for buy online, pickup in store, it typically results in additional purchases once the consumer gets to the store. What we also found is that for brands that leverage BOPUS during holiday, particularly in the last 2 weeks. Now, this is just an analysis of brands that have stores, because obviously, if you're a pure play e-commerce, it wouldn't be a fair comparison. But for brands that have stores that utilize BOPUS compared to those who don't utilize BOPUS and have stores, we found that, it's ranged from year to year, but in the last 2 weeks of the season, they see their online sales grow anywhere between 5 to 7% faster. Or sorry, 5 to 7x faster, not percent, x faster than those brands that don't utilize BOPUS. So it is also a growth
that is
lever.
a material amount, especially
Yeah.
in consideration with the increase in shipping costs and otherwise,
100%.
and tariffs, all the other factors in cost of goods sold increases.
Yep.
That is an absolute material amount. So to conclude, you have to use the levers at your disposal as a brand.
Mm-hmm.
And maximize those levers.
Yes.
Don't just use them for one use case. Find all the
Yes.
reasons to use them.
Yes, exactly. Because every piece of technology, again, thinking about the theme, right? Fractured but unified.
Yeah, I love it. Kayla, thank you so much. This is awesome. Always great chatting with you. And we will do it again next week.